What is up everyone, it's Saber here and welcome to another Naruto What If. If you end up liking the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can take it back at any time and it really helps me out, and this is my second channel, so if you want some more what ifs, go check out my other channels. And with all of the YouTube formalities out of the way, let's get into it. Cersei comfortably sat on a throne made of actual gold with red cushioned seating that were the colored symbols of House Lannister, her house, not House Baratheon, not House Stark, not House Tyrell, and certainly not House Targaryen. Sitting beside Cersei was her son Prince, no, it was King Joffrey, now King Joffrey and ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, or rather he would be the official ruler of the Seven Kingdoms if not for Ned Stark and the damn demon sage. The masked man had not only killed a large portion of Lannister men and Kingsguard loyal to her house, but had driven her family from King's Landing and taken control of it under the pretense of naming the next rightful king. Sadly, Lannisport was a poor substitute for her son when compared to King's Landing, and the symbol of power it represented. Lannisport wasn't horrible in design or in being a symbol of Lannister power, far from it. The city of Lannisport was a symbol of trade with other places, other kingdoms, and had been a growing form of income for House Lannister instead of mining gold found in the mines of Casterly Rock, but that was because both Lannisport and Casterly Rock were symbols to a High Lord, not a king, not like Cersei's precious son Joffrey. Earlier she met with what was considered her small council, which consisted of a few High Lords who lived in Lannisport and were loyal to her father. As his child they had to obey her until his return, and Cersei was making sure the ravens sent out to her father were carefully watched to ensure Joffrey's darker side was kept from being known. Tywin Lannister. Cersei knew her father didn't want his grandson shaming his legacy, and so long as she kept him in the dark, any order given to the lords of Lannisport to take away authoritative power would not arrive. As things stood, the city was slowly being flooded with refugees from the war between House Lannisters and House Stark, with the violence escalating during each battle. She didn't care about the refugees, they were small folk, peasants. Their duty in life was to serve the high lords and ladies that were born in high standing until the day they died. Unfortunately, the overall numbers of the small folk were many and a burden on the city's food supply, and with the recent declaring of summer now over, winter seemed to be getting much closer. Cersei had also spent the recent months preparing for an invasion of King's Landing, and taking the Iron Throne back from Ned Stark. She had decided to put the small folk around Lannisport, event the refugees, and conscripted them into fighting for House Lannister. There were a few who resisted since they didn't want to fight in the war nor believed in fighting for the side they were being told to serve. Cersei had made it clear to them that they could either die fighting against the Starks or they could stay in Lannisport to watch their loved ones die by hanging and being labeled traitors to King Joffrey's rule. That was another thing that upset Cersei. Ravens had been sent out all through the Seven Kingdoms about Joffrey's true parentage. It was bad enough her son was being denied the Iron Throne, but to have the reason behind it revealed to every house was even worse, as there were some who actually believed the information was true. Cersei had acted quickly to silence them through ordering their executions when they spoke about the issue and following that had been busy attending to Joffrey with his name day, which had happened just a few days ago. Fortunately, her father didn't believe it and was fighting for her son to be the king of the Seven Kingdoms. As for Joffrey, at the moment Cersei spared no expense on her son's name day and being able to provide him with entertainment. Why shouldn't she? He was a Lannister, a pure Lannister, thanks to her time with Jaime. None of the vile blood from Robert's house was in her son. Not that anyone really knew the whole truth except for a select handful of people, and those that were against her son being king had no right to judge Joffrey in terms of being the uncontested ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, as if there's anyone more worthy of being king than my Joffrey, my son, my beautiful son. He will take the Iron Throne back from Ned Stark, kill his family, kill the demon sage, and we will put their heads on pikes for all to see, thought Cersei angrily at how her years upon years of careful planning were foiled by one three-eyed demon hiding behind a mask. Beside her, Joffrey was thinking similar thoughts. Of course, unlike his mother, he was using his time doing something to vent his anger instead of letting it fester while sitting on a throne. Granted, it was still festering and growing with each passing day, but it was also being used to make up creative ways to hurt someone violently. At the moment, Joffrey was currently having some fool for a jester he randomly picked up from among the small folk get his tongue cut out just because the young Lannister felt like seeing someone suffer, and it wasn't the first time he had done this to someone in Lannisport either. Quite a few of the small folk within Lannisport, supporters of House Lannister for years going back generations, were being picked out at random and being used by Joffrey for his own sick amusement. And what was even worse for the small folk, no one in his new throne room had made an attempt to stop him. Why would they? How could they? He was protected by Lannister men on all sides. Each of these men were all chosen by Cersei to be his Kingsguard because she Knew they were all loyal to House Lannister, and what her house represented. This bores me, in this peasant's life. I want to see more of his blood all over the floor, commanded Joffrey as he saw the man had just lost his tongue, and yet the spoiled child wasn't happy with how this mere peasant wasn't suffering enough. The poor man cried out with what little voice he had after the removal of his tongue, but it did little to make the Lannister man next to him from taking out his sword and running it through his chest. Seeing Joffrey was busying himself with the suffering of the small folk he could gather from the city, she decided to handle matters regarding Lannisport and summon the small council to handle important matters normally entrusted by a ruler. While her son enjoyed these days sitting on his throne and enjoying life being a ruler, Cersei felt it was her duty as the queen regent and mother to the current king to run things for him until he was ready to take a more active role in ruling over people. Much to her surprise and anger, she found the one person coming into the small council room. The Lannister woman didn't want to see. "Hello, big sister, don't get up on my account, you look ravishing as always." "War agrees with you, forgive the interruption, do carry on," said Tyrion before kissing his sister on the cheek and sitting down in a nearby chair while Bronn was standing nearby. "What are you doing here?" demanded Cersei, while hating the idea of her little brother being in the same room. "It's been a remarkable journey. I pissed off the edge of the wall, I slept in a sky cell, and I even fought with the hill tribes of the Vale. I've had so many great adventures in such a short amount of time, I don't know where to start. I wish Myrcella and Tommen were here in this room, they would love to hear them all." "Joffrey, not so much," replied Tyrion with a smile, and it only made Cersei's scowl grow. "What are you doing here in Lannisport in this room? This is a small council meeting and you weren't invited," countered Cersei angrily. "Really? Well, I would think the Lord and ruler of Lannisport would have to attend all and have a say at such meetings, especially if they in fact do concern the city and the people living within it." Tyrion shot back calmly. "Our father is the Lord and ruler of Lannisport, not you." Cersei growled at him. "Yes, that is true, but in his absence you are only half right," replied Tyrion before he gave a rolled up and sealed parchment to one of the lords of the small council. "It says your father has named Lord Tyrion as the ruler of Lannisport in his stead while he fights the," said the lord who was the appointed by Cersei as the master of ships of the small council. Was interrupted by the queen regent. "Get out now," commanded Cersei angrily. "Something I said?" asked Tyrion, calmly, knowing she wanted him to stay and talk about this. "I would like to know how you tricked father into this," demanded Cersei while leaning down to stare at her dwarf for a brother. "Me, I didn't trick anyone, especially him. If I could trick father I would be emperor of the world by now. I am here because you brought this on yourself," replied Tyrion with Cersei's anger not leaving her in the slightest. "I've done nothing wrong," countered Cersei, though her tone sounded more like a child being punished and not liking the idea of being punished. "Oh please, we both know that is not true, sister. Father knows better with how things are here in Lannisport. He has more spies watching you than you even begin to realize. As for your past mistakes, let's see. There was your attempt to take the throne from one Ned Stark after the late King Robert had named him regent. That was a major wrong, and you know it. The attempted coup cost us quite a few Lannister men while you fled, and now your intended march on the capital to take back the Iron Throne is to be stopped from being carried out immediately. Father doesn't want Lannisport to be anywhere near empty of Lannister soldiers, since they are needed here to keep the peace, and I for one in this very rare moment in time agree with him. Besides, we may need them in the future to fight for father in this war that you and Joffrey started in King's Landing." Tyrion shot back as he went to drink some wine and saw Cersei looking like she wanted to slap him. "I still say I have done nothing wrong. I was trying to take the throne back for Joffrey so he could become king, my son, our father's grandson," stated Cersei firmly, in the belief she was right, while Tyrion smirking at her. "Really, from what I have heard on my way here, your son has no right to the throne considering who his father is, and that said father has none of Robert's blood in him," countered Tyrion, and saw his sister was 2 seconds away from slapping him in the face if he pressed a little bit harder on the issue. "Don't you say that my son Joffrey is the crown prince and deserves to rule as king of the Seven Kingdoms," stated Cersei, with Tyrion shrugging, since he didn't care what her beliefs were on the matter. Be as it may, everyone else in the Seven Kingdoms doesn't think so, and they all happen to have large armies at their command. The Starks, the Baratheons, the Tyrells, all the major houses are aiming to not only wipe us out in this war but fight for the Iron Throne in the process. The North is planning to break away from the kingdom despite its liege lord ruling over King's Landing as regent, and most likely do so when the new king is eventually crowned. Stannis and Renly are now on the march to take the Iron Throne from the other before they can sit on it. All this because you tried to take the throne from Ned Stark and then attempted to kill him in the process when he wouldn't bend the knee when demanded of him by Joffrey, replied Tyrion, with Cersei not looking at him. "I tried to make peace with him," said Cersei, but she knew it was an easy lie and one her brother didn't believe. "Did you? Well, it failed miserably. That little piece of theater will Haunt our family for a generation, maybe two if we are truly unlucky, said Tyrion with a sigh. Ned Stark is a crippled wolf. Robb Stark is a child in his father's shadow, commented Cersei while Tyrion shook his head. Who has won every battle that has been fought against us? Do you even understand what losing this war means to us, to House Lannister? Questioned Tyrion while Cersei did not care in the slightest, and it showed. What do you know of war? You spent many of your days drinking, whoring, and on rare occasions reading from a book with a goblet of wine in hand. Cersei shot back, it's true, I know nothing of war except for the battle I was in with the Vales Hill tribes. I helped acquire to fight for our house. I also know that aside from the simple fact it's quite bloody and cruel, the victor holds the life of the loser in their usually unmerciful hands. I also know people, how they think, how they act, and how they will react when having a civilized conversation with them like we are right now. I know the Starks won't rest until they have had their fill of fighting in the name of justice for what you started. It is what I know about people in general that is our only hope of ending this war peacefully with our lives intact and cleaning up this whole dirty mess currently staining our house. If Prince Joffrey wants to see his Uncle Jaime again, he'd better listen to me from here on out and keep his violent tendencies from showing further, said Tyrion with Cersei frowning in confusion. How? asked Cersei with a hint of curiosity. Fortunately, when I was taken to the Vale, I was able to befriend the demon sage in the hopes of clearing up the unjust accusation that was made against me about murdering the previous hand of the king, not to mention clearing my name regarding the attempted murder of Lady Stark's second oldest son, Bran. You remember Bran, right, dear sister? The one either you, or was it Jaime, who pushed the boy out of the tower to silence him so he wouldn't speak of the relationship you have with Jaime. Anyway, father wants me to eventually get in contact with the demon sage in the near future in the hopes that I can speak to Ned Stark. If we can come to peaceful terms, I believe we can convince him to send a message to his son about getting the northern armies to calm down and end this need for bloodshed before things spiral out of control any further. Winter is coming after all, explained Tyrion with Cersei clenching her hands into fists. That damned sage, this is all his fault. He should have just stayed in his little hut of a home or whatever little hovel someone like him lives in, remarked Cersei while Tyrion shrugged. In any case, father wants me here to rule and keep the people from rebelling due to the horrible things Joffrey has done since being here that you allow. From what I have heard on my way here, the people in Lannisport and in the West as a whole are slowly turning against us in terms of support. No thanks to Joffrey, replied Tyrion while Cersei glared at him. We should march against Ned Stark and the demon sage. We have more than enough men, totaled at 7,000 able soldiers, to launch such a campaign. It could easily be done with King's Landing being weak right now, said Cersei while Tyrion frowned at her and his own patience with the woman running out. Oh, enough, sister. Even if you somehow manage to raise an army 4 times that size, you can't win, not with the demon sage in King's Landing helping Ned Stark run things from the Iron Throne. Besides, your army would never be able to catch anyone in charge of things in King's Landing off guard. Word has it Pycelle is dead, and so is Littlefinger for betraying the Lord Regent. Lord Varys is siding with them and is no doubt having his little birds recording everything we say here without us noticing before sending it all back to him to report to Ned Stark. Even if you did get the army to King's Landing with a fight in mind, who among us can stand against the demon sage? No one, not you, me, or even father. The man cannot be bought with an offering of gold, silver, jewels, or anything we high lords and ladies covet. As valuable as skill with weapons is unmatched, and has the power to wipe out your conscripted army you have been building for months in a span of mere seconds. Or do you think the stories of the three-eyed masked sage killing entire armies with a single swing of a sword were just stories told by father to amuse us, countered Tyrion, with Cersei huffing angrily like a spoiled child. Getting no response, Tyrion sighed, knowing his sister better than she knew herself, and looked out the window to see a red comet streak across the sky, a sign of the dragons returning to the Seven Kingdoms. Essos, the red comet did indeed mean the return of the dragons, as the omens predicted. 3 dragons to be exact, 3 dragons born through fire, sacrifice, and love from a woman descended from a house said to have dragon's blood in their veins. That woman's name Daenerys of House Targaryen, and right now her life was slowly falling apart. How is it falling apart, you may now be wondering? Her husband Khal Drogo was dead, not slain in battle like a Khal should be killed given the warrior-like culture, but rather through a witch using the arts of blood magic. What was worse is the said witch used her magic to kill the child she carried too in a moment of weakness, this same witch Daenerys had spared from the cruel brutality of the Dothraki horde. Her husband commanded the witch actually justified her actions in saying it was justice for the horde attacking the village and the people here to get them to follow Khal Drogo. She also wanted to ensure Khal Drogo's bloodline died with him and his progeny would not be as great or greater than him, but Daenerys wouldn't tolerate such an excuse, not when it resulted in the death of an innocent child, her child to be exact. In that moment the knowledge of how to make the 3 dragon eggs hatch was unlocked, and What needed to be done to bring them into the world was made known to her. As such, the widow of Khal Drogo knew what needed to be done to bring them into the world and get justice for the two people she loved. Tying the witch to the funeral pyre where her husband rested upon, Daenerys soon sets it ablaze and walk into the fire with the 3 dragon eggs in hand. Jorah Mormont tried to stop her, not wanting Daenerys to die, as he believed in the woman being something great in this world, but she would not let him stop what needed to be done, and walked into the flame and the fire welcomed her. It practically embraced the woman of House Targaryen like it was welcoming a long-lost friend. The witch Mary Mazdur, not so much. The witch had stated she wouldn't scream, but Daenerys knew she would scream and told the woman she would do just that before the end, and the witch did scream. She screamed loud enough for the two of them. The next morning Jorah found himself staring at the nude form of Daenerys Targaryen, and she was holding 3 dragons in her arms. Slowly he kneeled at her feet, as did the rest of the remaining Khalasar, who were willing to stay after the rest dispersed following Khal Drogo's death. It was then Jorah Mormont swore he would do everything asked of him by this woman if it was within his power to ensure Daenerys sat on the Iron Throne as its queen. Only now the trick was getting her someplace to set up some form of power base to make it happen, which wasn't easy given they had so few in number among this Khalasar, even fewer pieces of food, water and horses to work with. They were currently in the middle of the desert that was called the Red Wastes, and Daenerys was in the middle of trying to get her 3 little dragon children to eat what meat could be spared for them. What did your brother say about them, Khaleesi asked Jorah, while seeing the dragons eating the meat given to them. Though it looked like it was difficult to do, he still couldn't believe there were 3 live dragons barely 2 feet from him. He said they ate meat, replied Daenerys, while seeing her 3 children struggle to eat the meat and nearly choking on the pieces. He didn't tell you what kind of meat, asked Jorah, while seeing the dragons seem to dislike the meat given to them. My brother didn't know anything about dragons, despite his attempts to say otherwise on the matter. He didn't know anything about anything. My brother was an idiot with an ego the size of Westeros, said Daenerys, while she put Drogo, her largest of the 3 dragons, in his cage and turned to see her horse had fallen over, exhausted from the intense heat. He's going to die. Khaleesi, the Red Waste makes even the mightiest of creatures who cross it fall with enough time and patience, said Jorah, with Daenerys caressing the poor animal lovingly. She was Drogo's first gift to me, commented Daenerys, while seeing the horse slowly die from the heat of the desert. I remember, whispered Jorah, since he remembered that moment too and mourned the loss of the now dead animal that his queen loved. I promised to protect them if they followed me. I even promised their enemies would die screaming. How do I make starvation scream, questioned Daenerys, with Jorah sighing. It is a trick I never learned, I'm afraid, answered Jorah, while looking at the vastness of the desert they were in. Does it ever end, asked Daenerys, while Jorah slowly nodded. This is further east than I have ever been, but yes, Khaleesi, everything ends, even the Red Waste, said Jorah, before something caught his eye and saw the ripple in the air and saw the sage manifest himself. Hello again, Lady Targaryen, you've clearly seen better days, remarked Naruto, while the woman in front of him scowled, and Jorah put a hand on his sword. You knew what was going to happen to me, said Daenerys in an accusing tone toward the masked man, with a hint of anger in her tone, a cold yet fiery anger. I did, replied Naruto sadly, while nodding. You knew I would lose my husband and child. You knew it was through their deaths I would feel the emotional pain you spoke of that would unlock the knowledge to awaken them. You knew, and yet you allowed it to happen, accused Daenerys before walking right up to him. I did. I saw your future. I saw theirs end, replied Naruto, with Daenerys barely resisting the urge to slap him. Why didn't you tell me? Why weren't you here to stop it, to save my husband, my baby, questioned Daenerys, while tears and anger spilled from her eyes. Because the future you would have, if I did, would have been worse, answered Naruto, with Daenerys frowning. How, asked Jorah, curiously. Contrary to what many believe, the future can be changed. What you don't know, and even fewer do know, is that changing the future can either be very good or very, very bad, answered Naruto, while Daenerys frowned at him. Are you saying my future would have been worse than it is now, questioned Daenerys, with Naruto nodding. It would have been. Would you like to know what the future held for you and the world had I revealed the painful truth early on, asked Naruto, with Daenerys reluctantly nodding. I would tell me the future. I did not have, commanded Daenerys, while hoping the sage did not take offense to her tone. As you wish. This is the truth behind your alternative future, which I would have created the day I gave my gift of knowledge pertaining to your 3 dragons and how to awaken them following my revealing of certain events. Your alternative self tries to ensure they do not happen and results in your now late brother Viserys performing the ritual needed to bring the dragons to life instead of you, answered Naruto, with Daenerys and Jorah frowning. The fire would have consumed him. He is not immune to harmful effects of fire like I am, answered Daenerys, with Naruto nodding. True, but he doesn't know that until it's too late the fire consumes him and the dragons are born through his life being reformed into them. As a result, the dragons he brought into the world at the expense of his Life leaving it becomes tainted, replied Naruto, with the woman in front of him looking shocked. Tainted by what? Asked Yora in confusion. Madness. Viserys had it long before Daenerys here was called Drogo's wife, when he did the ritual which he eventually overheard Daenerys mentioning to you. Yora, the madness from him passed on to all three dragons. You try to nurture them as they are a part of your family legacy. You love them, show them all the kindness a mother shows her children, and they grow up strong, healthy, and yes, they do breathe fire. In fact, you are quite proud of them for a time at least, all the while completely unaware of the madness that is slowly growing in them. You finally give birth to your son, and he is indeed a healthy boy. Your husband, called Drogo, is very happy to see his son growing up into a great call like himself, said Naruto, while Daenerys frowned. How is that bad? You said earlier that the alternative future is worse than the one I am in now, questioned Daenerys, while Naruto is nodding. It does get worse later on. Your three dragons slowly succumb to the madness, and they unleash said madness one day on your Khalasar, burning everything in sight, destroying everything in sight, eating everyone in sight, including your son. Your husband is burned in the dragon fire early on, so he doesn't witness the three of them ripping the poor boy to pieces. You, however, you do see it. You are the only survivor of their madness again. It is only for a time, replied Naruto, with Daenerys looking horrified by this. And what happens when they are done eating and burning things to the ground around me, whispered Daenerys, with Naruto closing his eyes for a moment. They fly away to cause untold death and destruction while leaving you alone and in the desert to die slowly from the heat, just as you are now. The dragons continue to destroy everything around them in sight, feeding, burning, and killing, with all of them having madness in their eyes. They are eventually killed, but that won't be for another 30 to 50 years, and by that point half the world is already consumed by their destruction. Essos, Westeros, Bravos, and even Dorne will never be the same again, replied Naruto, with Daenerys going pale in the face. While leaving out, he was busy dealing with the White Walkers during this time, so he couldn't stop the dragons himself unless necessary. I see such a future is indeed worse, whispered Daenerys, with Naruto nodding. Even still, our current situation of little food and water puts us in a dire situation, said Yora, with Naruto smirking. Fortunately, I am here to improve your situation with a temporary solution until you get to Karth, replied Naruto, before spinning his staff and slamming it down onto the ground, and making a lush oasis manifest itself barely 15 feet from them. By gods, whispered Yora, while the Khalasar behind them were speechless. Remember, the oasis here is only temporary. This will last about 3 days before the Red Waste claims it for itself. Use this time wisely to drink and store up on the water, on the food produce here, then head for Karth in that direction, replied Naruto, before pointing in the direction where to go next. What will I find in Karth? asked Daenerys, while Yora quickly ordered those behind them to use the oasis to its fullest, aside from warlocks, fat merchants, and greedy individuals seeking to use what you have for their own benefit. A place to stay and catch your breath, a place where you can plan your next move. Just be careful, Daenerys Targaryen. Now that your three dragons are back in this world, the magic this world once lost is now back, and those who could command it will want to keep the source behind the magic close by, warned Naruto, with Daenerys looking back where her dragons were stored. I won't let them take my dragons. No one can take them from me, stated Daenerys, with Naruto nodding. They are still young and weak dragons, as are all things recently born. When entering the world as it stands, they could barely intimidate a small house cat, and the mere sight of them now would hardly provoke the necessary fear where fear is needed most, remarked Naruto before he walked over to the cage holding all three. What are you doing? asked Daenerys, before she looked shocked when he opened the cage and put his hand inside, giving your dragons the strength they need to grow, answered Naruto, before he let the three dragons bite his hand and eating his flesh. Doesn't that hurt? asked Daenerys, while hearing the dragons more than seeing them eat the flesh from his hand. Of course it does. I just have a high pain tolerance. You have to be when in my line of work, answered Naruto, while the three dragons feasted on his hand before taking the appendage away and made them whine before he shut the cage, while give the three of them a scolding. Do not push it. Look, why are you helping me? What price are you asking me to pay now? asked Daenerys, with Naruto walking toward them. None. I'm merely giving you a means to survive, to stay strong. I've given you all that is needed to endure the Red Wastes until you get to Karth. Just remember what I said about trusting them, replied Naruto, while Daenerys nodded, since he basically told her when reading between the lines. Don't trust them, answered Daenerys, with Naruto smiling behind his back. You're learning quickly. Well done. I'll see you in your group later to check up on your progress. Until that day, Mother of Dragons, replied Naruto before he was gone again. And a ripple, is it true about what he said about Karth? asked Daenerys, with Yora nodding every word. Khaleesi, answered Yora, with Daenerys frowning. Make sure everyone is well fed and we have enough food stored for the travel to Karth. I want our future host to see that we are not as weak as they would first believe us to be at the start of our first meeting. commanded Daenerys with Yora nodding. Westeros Dragonstone. Stannis was in the war room of his castle within Dragonstone. It was a dark, dreary place during the day, and even worse at night. It had become a depressing place once Stannis was given it as a reward by his brother Robert after years of loyal service during the rebellions. Meanwhile, Renly got the Stormlands, that was where the Baratheon house resided, and currently ruling over it while proclaiming himself the new king. That treasonous brother of mine violates the rules of succession and expects others to follow him over me. My brother knows nothing of combat, of blood being spilled by your own hands and sword. He goes to tourneys, drinks wine, writes poetry, and if the rumors are indeed true, be with others not of the opposite gender, thought Stannis as he looked over the table map showing the situation Westeros was in with the war between the Lannisters in the west, and the Starks coming down from the north. Stannis had nothing against Ned Stark. Like the wolf, he too had a sense of honor and decency while punishing those who broke the laws of gods and men. While he didn't really believe in the seven gods, he still believed the laws made should be upheld and punish those who defied them. At first, Stannis was willing to trust in Robert's judgment at his end to name Ned Stark as regent and protector of the realm until a king could be declared. It wouldn't be difficult to get the Warden of the North to make Stannis king, as Robert had denounced all three of his wife's incest bastard-born children, and the rules following the line of succession clearly stated the king's younger sibling would take the throne. That changed when a raven came to Stannis by Lord Stark that the Red Woman and his acceptance of such a god was not in the best interest of the realm, that the right to say who would be king or possibly queen of Westeros was under the control of the regent, and neither Stannis nor Renly were going to be made ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, not when there were better candidates to choose from. In short, Ned Stark was not going to name Stannis Baratheon the new king of Westeros and was going to choose someone else he felt was more worthy of the crown. It was an insult to him as a Baratheon. And then SHE came into the picture, the main reason Ned Stark had ultimately said no to appointing Stannis as king. The Red Woman Melisandre of Ass High from Essos, she had arrived shortly before Robert's death, and Ned Stark was still hand of the king. The red-haired, red dress-wearing woman spoke of the Lord of Light and how Stannis was the god's champion, how she could help him gain the Iron Throne through her god, and all Stannis had to do was embrace her god's faith. Stannis planned to get rid of her to get the throne from Ned as proof of being worthy, but Melisandre had claimed that even if he did send her away, the wolf would not yield to the stag of fire and still deny Stannis his rightful claim that if he was truly a Baratheon, Stannis would have to fight for what was his by right and claim the Iron Throne by force, just as Robert did against the Targaryens years ago. With her help and the help from this Lord of Light, seeing no other alternative before him, Stannis decided to embrace this god from Essos and see if this one deity could do what the seven would not. At the same time, he would use his standing and influence to spread the news everywhere, so all would know to make the right decision, which was why the current scribe of Dragonstone had written his message about Cersei's three children being bastards born of incest with Ser Jaime the Kingslayer, how by the laws of gods and men, that is Robert's next oldest sibling, had a right by blood to the Iron Throne, that the Lord Regent Ned Stark and the great sage were to step aside to let him rule over the Seven Kingdoms. When Eddard Stark first learned the truth about the parentage of Cersei Lannister's three children, he only told me in the hopes of handling this matter discreetly, no doubt to help protect Robert from further shame, while admirable to some degree to show his loyalty to House Baratheon. My brother is dead, so protecting him from further shame is quite pointless at this time. I won't make the same mistake, and I will ensure everyone knows the cold, bitter truth about the incest-born children his sinful wife brought screaming into the world. Send my message to every corner of the realm, from the harbor to the wall. Let no man claim ignorance as an excuse. It's time to pick a side, commanded Stannis, while the scribe nodded dutifully. Your Grace, at the moment the Lannisters seem to be the major concern for the time being, as they are the main reason for this war and your older brother's death. Perhaps you could make peace with Renly long enough to crush them for their crimes against your house, offered Ser Davos Seaworth, who had been a long-time loyal follower of Stannis and became one of his close advisors. I will not make peace with Renly so long as he calls himself king. My idiot of a younger brother should be siding with me. Instead, he tries to usurp my right to rule. Usurping the Mad King is one thing, but to do it to your own brother, it's almost as bad as kinslaying, said Stannis with Davos nodding. I that it is your Grace, but you must consider the eyes of the small folk and just what they see in regards to your actions. If you fight your brother Renly and then take the Iron Throne away from Ned Stark by force, the small folk will not support you in the slightest. We both know a king cannot rule over a kingdom, let alone seven of them, if he doesn't have their support. Many have already declared your brother king and have pledged their support to him, namely House Tyrell of the Reach and Randall of House Tarly support Renly being king. It's only because of Ned Stark having the final say as regent, with the sage himself helping him rule. Does your brother hold off on attacking King's Landing and doesn't want to be seen as an usurper to his brother's last written words, countered Davos, since he knew how small folk thought about High Lords due to being one of the small folk and an old-fashioned smuggler who Stannis had knighted for his loyalty in it. And following the end of the rebellion, Stannis does not need the strength of the small folk, nor does he need to beg this lord or that lord for support, not when the Lord of Light stands behind him in his quest for the Iron Throne, remarked Melisandre calmly while Davos glared at her. And just how many men and ships does this Lord of Light have under his command? How many knights, archers, horses, riders, and scouts does your god have to give us? Asked Davos, since he was pretty sure the answer was 0. He has no need for such things, said Melisandre calmly. I'm sure he doesn't, but we do if we're going to war. If not, Renly, your grace, at least join with Robb Stark after what the Lannisters tried to do to his father and your brother. The alliance between houses is the only path to take here, offered Davos, knowing the last time both houses worked together the Targaryens fell and a Baratheon sat on the Iron Throne for last 2 decades. An alliance with the Starks, those who would steal the northern half of the kingdom from me. They are thieves, Davos. That's what they all are in my eyes. Cersei, Joffrey, Renly, Robb Stark, and Ned Stark, they are all thieves. They will bend the knee or be destroyed, exclaimed Stannis, with Davos not looking convinced. What about the Demon Sage? He is in King's Landing as we speak, helping Ned Stark with his duties as regent. His magic is considered unmatched, and I know you have seen his skill with a blade, your grace, questioned Davos, while Melisandre smiled slightly. He is nothing compared to the Lord of Light. His so-called powers comes from the true enemy, that is the Lord of Nothing. The magic this sage commands is one of darkness and shadow. My magic and vision seen through the flames can handle him when it is time to do away with such a heretic. The more sacrifices I can give the Lord of Light during the campaign, the greater my power becomes through him, and eventually I will be able to do battle and eventually destroy this demon sage. The Lord of Light commands it, replied Melisandre confidently, while Stannis was thinking things over in his head and Davos grimacing. Her Lord of Light commanding it, and her Lord of Light giving her the power to do it are two different things. Add to the fact she isn't strong enough to fight him now means any act done with this woman using her magic will catch his attention, thought Davos, as he feared this woman's honey-filled words would turn Stannis into her puppet and make the man betray himself before the end. King's Landing. Weeks later, Naruto was taking a break from training Gendry. So far the young man was doing well, and it was only a matter of time before showing he was worthy of being part of House Baratheon. Right now the sage felt the young man should seek counsel from Ned Stark and learn more about Robert Baratheon before the man became king. The image of the man as of present was one who drank, hunted, and whored for the last 20 years. It did not sit well with Naruto that poor Gendry would think of such a person. That was his father when Robert's name was spoken in public. If ever there was more to Robert than all his vices, and Ned Stark was one of the few people left in this world who knew how to best describe Robert to Gendry. A weak kick to his leg while in mediation stirred Naruto from his thoughts to see Arya standing to his right and glaring at him. You are training Gendry, commented Arya with a hint of anger in her voice while she scowled at him. I am, answered Naruto before getting another kick from the girl. If you can train him, why won't you train me? Asked Arya while Naruto smirked behind his mask. Because unlike poor Gendry, you are more complex in terms of being taught on how to fight, and thus require a strong foundation before I can work with you, said Naruto, and got another tiny kick in response. I don't believe you, replied Arya, with Naruto getting off the ground and letting out a small chuckle. Believe what you want, Arya, but it is true. Gendry's fighting style requires brute force and muscle. He has both, but no coordination, which is what I am working on when I am not teaching him how to use his brain. You, my dear, require a teacher who can bring out your agility, coordination, sharpen your eyes to see what others miss, and speed to move fast. If I were to train you now in those things, I would be a harsh teacher and too cruel for someone with your body to handle. In short, your body would break, and not because you are a girl, it's because you are young and still in a stage of development where it has to do more than someone else to get the needed results. It just takes time and patience on your end. You have plenty of the former, but little when it comes to the latter. If you rush things, you will stumble and fall hard when trying to learn so hard. In fact, you may not even get up and be broken beyond repair. I don't want that to happen. I know you don't want that to happen, replied Naruto with Arya still scowling at him. I still want you to train me, said Arya with Naruto nodding. I know, but you have to prove yourself. You think Gendry doesn't prove himself? He has to train with me every day in some shape or form, mentally, physically, or sometimes both, to the point where the poor boy has to have a full day's rest, and he's practically a fully grown adult right now, so Gendry can take whatever form of training I throw at him. You don't believe me? Ask your father. Ask Ser Barristan of the Kingsguard. Ask Syrio. When it comes to my training methods, no one is the same. Everyone is different and gets their own pace with me, replied Naruto, with Arya frowning less since she knew both her father and sword dancing instructor held him in such high regard. I will, and I am "Sorry, I kicked you," said Arya before running off and ran around the form of the Hound approaching Ser Sandor Clegane. "How can I help you?" asked Naruto, since he saw the man, now a Knight of the Realm, for aiding Ned Stark in protecting his assigned station as Regent of the Seven Kingdoms. "Ned Stark needs to speak with you, great sage. It's in regards to his son Robb Stark and his army fighting the Lannisters," answered Sandor, with the scarred man looking at him with a great deal of respect. "Of course, thank you, Ser Clegane. Lord Stark is in the small council room, I take it?" asked Naruto, with Sandor nodding before the masked blonde vanished in a ripple. "He's done that for months in front of me, and I still can't fucking believe it," said Sandor to himself before shaking his head. "Red keeps small council room, so Stannis is preparing to fight against Renly, and Renly is gathering his army with the help of the Tyrells to hold the biggest stick of everyone," commented Naruto, with Varys nodding while Ned looked grim. "Yes, Robb Stark has been proclaimed the king in the north by the lords residing the north and want to secede from the kingdom once the issue with the Lannisters is over. Even though Lord Stark here is regent, the northern lords feel the south, that is us here in King's Landing, are not worthy of their loyalty. They won't harm anyone here so long as Ned Stark is regent, but once a new king has been declared here, I highly doubt they will wish to welcome anyone within these walls with open arms or bend the knee while swearing fealty," replied Varys, while Ned had tried to get his son to reason with all of the northern lords for months now and was met with little success. "Yes, well, the Lannisters made that happen through their actions, so if anyone is to blame for that, it's them. What of Stannis and Renly? From what I heard from your last report, Renly has the larger force when compared to Stannis' own?" asked Naruto, with Varys nodding. "Indeed he does, great sage. As I told Lord Stark here earlier, Stannis has the full might of the soldiers and lords around Dragonstone and an impressive navy. He even had one Ser Davos Seaworth recruit a fleet of pirate ships with the help of an old friend of his during their younger ship sailing days. Renly, however, has an army from the Stormlands and the Reach thanks to his marriage to Marjorie Tyrell of House Tyrell. Overall, Renly has about 100,000 men at his command and outnumbers his brother by quite a sum," said Very, with Naruto nodding. "What of the Red Woman from Essos? Isn't she a factor?" asked Ned, since he knew from past conversations with Naruto that the Red Woman was an unknown asset to Stannis to be used against Renly. "Yes, from what my birds have told me, she claims Stannis is in fact her Lord of Light's champion and has made it clear to him that he will win against Renly if challenged. She has even claimed to eventually challenge you, great sage, no doubt using some form of magic to give Stannis an edge in battle, one she might use against Renly, which the poor boy doesn't see or even know about since he doesn't believe magic can harm him," said Varys, with Naruto frowning, since Renly was acting overconfident when it came to the use of such powers. "Could she challenge you, Naruto?" asked Ned, with Naruto shaking his head. No, that's not to say she won't try to kill me, but that will come later. After Stannis deals with Renly, she's no doubt sacrificing quite a few people as we speak to prepare her for what she plans to do next against Renly. "Melisandre won't make a move against me, not yet. In any case, she actually believes her precious Lord of Light has the power to kill me and will kill me through her while using Stannis at the same time to do it," said Naruto, with Ned frowning further at the idea of Stannis being converted to such a religion. "My birds have also told me that one Catelyn Tully Stark plans to meet with Renly to forge an alliance to combat the Lannisters. Since Robb Stark has no intention of taking the Iron Throne, the young Baratheon will no doubt take it and use such an alliance to push for his right to be king with the backing of the Tyrells," replied Varys, with Naruto sighing and Ned doing the same. "And if Renly does defeat Stannis in battle, the small folk just might pull for it to some degree," commented Naruto, with a frown while his hand twitched and part of his mind was saying to act before things spiraled out of control. So why did he hold back? Surely it wasn't because he was afraid of what people thought of him when using his power. No, he stopped thinking that a long time ago. So what made him not go down into the camps of these different houses and get them to stop the war from becoming everything the late Lord Baelish wanted to see happen? Because this world needs to suffer. This world needs to be reminded of what it means to feel pain beyond measure by their own hands, or else people as a whole will not stop hurting each other. Frowning at the thought, Naruto banished it to the back of his head to refocus on what Varys was saying next. "Also, your ward Theon Greyjoy has gone to the Iron Islands to speak to his father about aiding House Stark against the Lannisters with a fleet of ships. While it is a sound plan of sorts, Balon Greyjoy is not a sound man, and I have little faith he will agree to the terms Robb Stark is offering in return for his aid," said Varys, while Naruto nodded. "No, he won't. If anything, Balon will see Theon's return as an insult in the belief Ned here turned his son from a kraken into a servant of the wolf. He will want to attack the north at its weakest with the entire majority of the Stark army marching south. In fact, I know he will do it," replied Naruto, with Ned not liking this one bit. "The north cannot be defeated by the kraken. Such an invasion would fail. Theon would not allow it. I have been more of a father to the boy than his own could ever be in life," said Ned, while Naruto shook his head while true Theon has also wished for his father's approval of his decisions, and love a son gets from his father. Balon knows this and will use it against Theon to make him choose between loyalty to the North and the man who raised him during that time, or the loyalty to the Iron Islands in which he was born from and seeking his father's love to one day be his heir. Theon will sadly choose the latter in the belief it is reachable. It is not, said Naruto while seeing visions of Theon betraying Robb, returning to Winterfell and in its weakest state and killing quite a few people to show he is indeed a Greyjoy. Theon will betray my son, asked Ned while Naruto nodded if he hasn't already. Yes, the future still has its moments where they change at the very last minute. Theon could still change his mind and warn your son with a message, but I doubt he will warn Robb, not when he sees a chance to earn his father's love that will sadly never be there for him, and telling the idiot otherwise will just strengthen his desire to fight for his father, replied Naruto with Ned gritting his teeth. I have to warn my son about this, said Ned with Naruto nodding, and I will deal with Theon. I know you feel I should show him mercy, Ned, but this is not one of those times. If Theon does betray Robb like I believe he will, I will kill him, but if he does not betray your son, I'll get the man back to Winterfell to deal with at a later time, said Naruto with Ned nodding. Anything else, asked Ned with Varys mentioning a few things here and there along with the issue surrounding the crown's debt. The debt owed to the Iron Bank is being called in Lord Regent. Apparently the death of Littlefinger has finally reached the ears of the bank in Bravos, and they wish to have the debt they own over the crown be paid post haste, no doubt considering the simple fact a war is happening around King's Landing, and they fear no one here will be able to pay it due to being dead. A representative is arriving in a few days to discuss things with you, Lord Stark, said Varys with Ned scowling at what Littlefinger did to the crown. Don't worry about the debt, Ned, I have it covered. I found a large portion of the money our thieving master of coin hid during his time serving King Robert. Under his title we can make healthy good faith payments until any additional income can be gathered to pay off the debt, or I find the rest of the stash, replied Naruto with Ned nodding. While we are on the subject of vacated seats on the small council, who is going to take up such empty positions? Stannis and Renly are fighting for themselves, and Lord Baelish is dead. Grand Maester Pycelle ended his life, and the Citadel has not sent out another one of their Grand Maester we can use, questioned Varys with Ned frowning. For now they will have to be vacant. I'll handle the finances for now to keep the Iron Bank off Ned's back, and see if I can't help get the crown back in the financial black, said Naruto, knowing the crown needed a stabilized economy. Fortunately, with the Lannisters out of King's Landing, more places were open to trading with the capital, since all previous agreements gave House Lannister a significant sum of gold when dealing with the crown. In fact, what gold didn't go to House Lannister or the Master of Coin went to the crown, but now that Ned was regent those deals were void, and thus new healthier trade agreements could be made to benefit all. In fact, Ned had spent his long days as regent fixing more of Crown's problems than he would have liked, but knew it was for the good of the realm. Naruto had been a big help with that, using his ability to be multiple places at once, and helped coordinate plans with Ser Barristan on how to improve the city. The place was sadly stinking of horse shit, pig shit, and various other forms of shit, with the possibility of an epidemic or plague possibly springing up if left unchecked. As such, Naruto had his copies work throughout the city of King's Landing and improving the city as a whole in order to make living there more tolerable. For one, Naruto improved on the sanitation system within King's Landing, which had not been updated in years thanks to either the lack of funding or lack of trying. Either way, the sage knew without proper sanitation King's Landing was ripe for a plague or disease manifesting itself within the lowest of the small folk and would spread out until all that was left is death. Second, Naruto began to prepare for the inevitable invasion that would be coming his way, and wanted King's Landing to fight off the enemy army, whether it was by House Lannister or House Baratheon who came knocking. It didn't matter to Naruto, since he knew neither one would spare the majority of the people if allowed to sack the city. Men would be killed, women raped, and some would be a combination of the two. Most of the children would either be killed or enslaved by their attackers for profit, by shipping them off to Essos, where slavery was one could make a fortune selling people into bondage. As such, Naruto found various walls around King's Landing were in need of repair and got the stonemason workers set on fixing these issues immediately. He also looked over a map of King's Landing and the history of each attack on King's Landing in the past, surrounding where each attack force struck each time, while every invading force failed to take the city. The one majority of each attack on King's Landing was done at the Mud Gate, and was considered by many to be the weakest gate of them all. Since Mud Gate was surrounded by water, no one considered fixing it, since the Royal Navy was always around to defend from the sea, and the narrow landing area in front of the gate made it easy for the archers to target the enemy soldiers. Only now King's Landing had no naval fleet to speak of, since most of the ships went to Stannis due to his position as master of ships when serving on the small council, and they followed him once he declared himself king after Robert died, meaning the Mudgate had lost its shield against naval invasion and would need to be fixed in a way where such a weakness in relying on a naval fleet in that area wasn't an issue, hence why Naruto decided to create numerous pitfalls around the area while concealing them from view and making it seem as if such traps didn't exist at all. The only part not covered with lethal pitfall trap was a thin direct line to the Mudgate itself, but even that was protected by a hidden entrance you could only unlock from the inside and could put a hidden section of archers to flank the invading army. It was located on the far right side of the Mudgate and was well hidden by some trees and bushes thick enough to hide such a force when necessary. Another thing Naruto did was expand the farming regions all around King's Landing to help produce one final last-minute batch of food, before winter decided to make itself known. While there was plenty of food to last roughly 7 years, winter wasn't here yet, and the supply of food stored could possibly deplete faster due to the war between the Lannisters and the Starks. The more food the city had, the better it would be able to survive the winter and prevent the people from turning on each other should times get tough. Speaking of people, the war between the two houses was the refugees flooding into the city seeking safety, which normally would cause problems, but Naruto fixed it easily by having those entering King's Landing be employed in some shape or form. By employing them into a job or service, they wouldn't become homeless, starving, and have no means to affording a roof over their heads when living here. Some even joined the City Watch and the King's Guard to help bolster the defense of King's Landing with training by the veteran members of both groups, training them should King's Landing be attacked in the future. Naruto was confident that the city could defend itself against an invasion by either House Lannister or Baratheon. Time skip: Naruto was in the north, or to be more accurate, he was in Winterfell seeking out one Bran Stark. Word had reached him by Raven from Maester Luwin that Bran was showing some strange abilities and having strange dream-like visions. Given how Naruto was part of the magical and supernatural realm from which Luwin himself had no real experience, he felt it was best if the sage paid the boy a visit, while the Maester of the North didn't have the experience personally nor understood how Naruto did what he did. The elderly man knew when to call for help from someone who did know, hence why Naruto was here. Hello Bran, working hard I see, said Naruto when he walked into the main hall of the castle of Winterfell to see Bran was surrounded by Bookmaster Luwin and Jon Stark with the dire wolf ghost and Summer in the corner watching everything. Hello great sage, thank you for coming at my maester's request, replied Bran politely while seeing Jon also giving a nod of respect to the masked man who helped get him to be a legitimate member of House Stark. When the Maester wrote to me about your unique abilities, I felt it was my duty to see just what they were exactly and decide on how to proceed following what I learned. Now tell me in your own words what it is you are doing during these dreams, or what you see happening in your dreams, questioned Naruto with Bran nodding. Well, sometimes I dream I'm Summer, my dire wolf. I see myself through his eyes, and we are hunting as one. I see everything he sees. I feel what he feels when eating the prey captured during the hunt. Other times I see strange things. I'm not part of it, but I see shapes or animals moving around the world. I sometimes see a kraken attacking the north with what looks like a near-empty wolf's den being flooded. I see 3 dragons flying around a desert area with broken chains while shooting fire on the chains to make them melt. I see the wolves, who are from the north, killing most of the lions in the west, and a stag made of fire burning another stag with roses on top of its antlers to ash. And recently I saw, said Bran while hesitating. You saw what? Asked Naruto frowning. I see a 3-eyed raven. It speaks to me saying to find him in the far north beyond the wall. I also saw the White Walkers, said Bran with Naruto frowning. Are you sure? Bran asked Naruto with Bran nodding yes, while it was only for a brief moment, but it was one of them. He might even be the leader of them. He has a crown of horns made of crystal like ice coming out of his head. It looked like he could see me with the way his eyes stared into mine. He actually reached out to grab my arm, but thankfully I woke up before it happened, replied Bran with Naruto frowning. If this White Walker does exist, I won't let him hurt you, Bran said Jon to assure his brother's worries for the future. So they made their own king. It figures since they need a leader. It only took them at least 1,000 years. Still, I have to investigate this after I deal with Bran, thought Naruto before refocusing himself on Bran. The White Walkers can't get through the wall. The magic residing in it prevents them from entering, said Bran, knowing the stories about the wall and how it kept the White Walkers from heading south. True, but let's leave the White Walkers alone for the moment. They clearly know of you and your existence, but getting over the wall is just not possible for them at the moment. Even with their army of the undead as for your dreams of being your dire wolf, I would say you, my dear boy, are a warg, replied Naruto with amusement. At the end, a warg? Asked Bran while the others looked intrigued. Yes, it's a rare trait to possess such an ability such as this one. I know even the wildlings beyond the wall have such a skill and have used it as such to spy on the Night's Watch to see the best way to get around the most guarded areas. It's how some of them get over the wall. Without being seen, case in point being the wildling girl you recently acquired into your service, said Naruto with Bran looking intrigued yet worried. Does that mean I'm part wildling? What does a warg do exactly? Asked Bran with Naruto letting out a chuckle. No, it's not hereditary per se. Your son or daughter could or could not possess the skill, and the same goes for your grandchildren. Your descendants may not have it for 3 generations, but the 4th might when it appears. Isn't an exact science. As for what a warg is, it means you, Bran Stark, have the ability to possess the minds of animals and ultimately control them for a period of time, answered Naruto with Bran looking at him in shock and awe. Animal possession? Questioned Bran with Naruto nodding. And not just your dire wolf either. You can control ravens, cats, pig, goats, and just about anything alive. You possess their bodies and move around as they would, while their animal instincts become yours for a time. Your warg skills are in their infancy stage right now, meaning you understand what is happening but are not truly capable of controlling things. Not yet anyway, replied Naruto with Bran nodding. Is there a downside to this power? Asked Jon with concern, since he feared there was a catch. This sort of power, the gods always made sure of that there is a catch. As you warg with an animal, you essentially are the animal during that time, meaning if you were a pig or farm animal about to be killed for food, you would die as if you actually were the pig or farm animal about to be killed for food. In short, if the animal you warg into dies for whatever reason, its life ends, you die with it. The pain from the animal's death transfers into your brain here and is so intense your actual body shuts down too, because it believes it's been hit with a lethal strike to the body. One could say it's a form of mind over body used against you, answered Naruto with Bran looking pale at the thought. So only use this power sparingly and carefully, surmised Jon while Naruto nodded. Practice makes perfect, no question, but do it within the confines of the castle and without one of the animals most likely to lose its life. Also, I wouldn't rely on using the ability to warg to sustain your actual body if in an animal for a long time. Remember, the animal you are possessing is eating another animal, not you personally. With your human body as such, your own body must not be neglected, replied Naruto in a lecturing and warning tone. Speaking of human bodies, does Bran have the power to possess other people? If one can warg with an animal, is it possible to possess another person? Asked Jon with Naruto surprising them by nodding. It is possible in theory. It all really depends on the possessor and the possessed. In terms of who is mentally stronger, the warg would have to be incredibly strong mentally and have a great deal of experience with his or her power. The possessed would have to be of a weaker mind of sorts to allow a warg to possess him or her in such a manner. Another way to do it, at least in theory, is for the possessor to allow such a possession to even take place when the attempt is made. Again, it's all in theory, but I wouldn't make the attempt at this time, replied Naruto with Bran thinking things over. I will be careful when I warg into other animals. Maybe I will do it just with Summer for now, said Bran while Naruto nodded in approval. Good, just make sure you don't spend too much time in your dire wolf's head. It's not good to stay in there or any animal's head for too long, said Naruto in a concerned tone. What about my dream about the 3-eyed raven? He spoke to me in my dream and asked for me to find him beyond the wall, questioned Bran while Naruto thought that part over in his head. I'll deal with him, he and I have history together, replied Naruto sadly. You know of this 3-eyed raven? Asked Jon while wondering if there was more to this than the sage. Let on more than you know, rest assured Bran, you do not need the 3-eyed raven to teach you about your powers. Leave that to me, replied Naruto before patting the boy. You're going to train me? Asked Bran in shock. Only to help master your ability to warg and your visions of the future. The latter is the most difficult to master because those who experience it at a young age don't understand what they see. As such, it can make someone go mad because they see things that neither make sense or do make sense to them, with not all of their visions being nice. Foresight is contrary to many people wishing for such a power, not a pleasant ability to have in one's hands, especially if you see the death of those you love or even yourself and are unable to do something to stop it, said Naruto with Bran looking frightened by such a power. Can it be controlled? Asked Bran with Naruto nodding. With time and training you currently lack the discipline because you are young and are unable to stop seeing such visions due to them appearing in your sleep. When you sleep, your mind is more relaxed, and it is the reason why they keep happening when dreaming. When I take care of my business beyond the wall as well as some other private matters, I will come back here to help with your powers and make sure it's under better control, said Naruto before getting up from his seat and heading for the door. But what if these visions keep happening while you are away? Asked Bran with Naruto looking back. The visions can't hurt you, Bran. Not all of them will be pleasant, but not all of them are horrible either. Tell your visions to Jon or Maester Luwin after they happen. With more minds helping you understand what you saw, the better it will be to act accordingly, said Naruto before he was out the door. Stormlands. At the moment Naruto appeared just as Catelyn Stark rode into the encampment of Renly Baratheon and his army mixed with those of House Tyrell. Both of their appearances had shocked the men there. Some had drawn their swords, while others, seeing who the masked was, had quickly stopped them and quickly bowed their heads in respect. They knew the masked man from their childhood and the stories spoken of the masked three-eyed sage who had the power to crush armies of men like they dim-witted children. Lady Stark, hope I didn't frighten you with my sudden appearance, said Naruto with the woman getting off her horse, and smiled at him. No, I'm all right, great sage. Why are you here, if I may ask, questioned Caitlyn, while Naruto were currently walking with her to see the melee going on in front of the Renly and his new wife Marjorie Tyrell. To speak to Renly, he needs to stop his campaign for the Iron Throne before it's too late and a whole lot of shit spirals out of control, said Naruto with all seriousness in his voice on the matter. I need Renly's help to fight the Lannisters. Surely my husband will understand if I ask him to make Renly the official king, countered Caitlyn, while Naruto shook his head. While tempting to make Renly king, he can't be one due to the rules of succession, and there's also the matter of his preferences, whispered Naruto, while Caitlyn now had a grim look on her face. Then my coming here might be for naught, whispered Caitlyn, while Naruto shrugging. Not necessarily. Perhaps you can convince Renly and Stannis to stop their bickering and make peace with each other. I doubt either one wants to be labeled a kinslayer with any luck. A third party such as yourself can talk some sense into them. You have a knack for it, replied Naruto before they saw the melee going on in a much closer setting. Yield, I yield, exclaimed Ser Loras of House Tyrell. Not surprising when your helmet is lifted off your face and a dagger pointing down at it. Well fought, approach, commanded Renly while clapping and saw the victor approach and kneel. The armor is a bit bulky, so it hides the body behind it well, but that is clearly not a man behind that armor, thought Naruto while seeing the victor of the melee with analytical eyes. Rise and remove your helmet, commanded Renly while the melee victor did that, and many were shocked to see it was a woman of all things who had bested Ser Loras in a fight. I knew it, my mother would be laughing herself stupid if she were here, thought Naruto, since he knew how his mother was the same way and wanting to prove herself among the other gender. You are everything your father promised and more, my lady. I've seen Ser Loras bested once or twice, but never in quite the fashion most impressive, praised Renly, while Ser Loras himself didn't look pleased. Now my love, my brother fought valiantly for you, said Marjorie to make sure her husband wouldn't forget Loras and his true value. That he did, my queen. However, there can only be one champion. Brienne of Tarth, you may ask anything you desire. If it is within my power, it is yours, replied Renly while he saw the woman once again. Took a knee. Your grace, I ask for the honor of a place within your Kingsguard. I will be one of your 7. Pledge my life to yours and keep safe from all harm, said Brienne while Renly just smiled and nodded. Done. Rise, Brienne of the Kingsguard, declared Renly while everyone around them started clapping. But it was clear to Naruto not everyone was happy with the news of having a woman be among them in such a male-dominated position. Naruto nodded in approval though, since the woman had definitely earned her right to be in such a position, since she knew how to fight and was clearly believed in fighting for someone worthy of her sword. With a whisper to a knight near them, Naruto motioned the man to step forward and make the necessary announcement. Your grace, I have the honor of bringing you the great sage Naruto of House Uzumaki. Beside him is Caitlyn Tully Stark, the envoy of the Lord of Winterfell. Robb Stark, said the knight while presenting the 2 people behind him. Lord of Winterfell and King in the North, declared Caitlyn while glaring at the man who announced their arrival. I still can't believe that happened. Your husband and son will have to talk about that last title, Lady Stark, whispered Naruto, with Caitlyn letting a grimace form on her face for a second but nodded discreetly. All the same, he's right. Robb didn't ask to become king in the North, but the situation in the South with the Lannisters' actions in the past using the late King Robert has made them hate the idea of bending the knee to someone on the Iron Throne. House Stark is considered to be royalty in the North, just like Lannisters are in the West, the Tyrells in the South, and the Arryn in the East. The only difference is Northern lords don't have such a strong sense of loyalty to the throne that has a history of hurting them for so long. Ned is regent, but he won't rule over King's Landing forever, and they know it to be true. This war happening with the Lannisters is the chance for the North to leave the kingdom as a whole and be its own with a king to serve. Far closer to home, thought Caitlyn while telling Robb as such, and he agreed with her on the issue. The problem was getting the Northern lords to do the same. If Robb tried to resist them on the issue, even when it first started out, it risked many houses withdrawing support to fight the Lannisters. Why fight for a house run by a liege lord who doesn't have the fire in him to fight back against the injustice done to them and the North as a whole? Great sage Lady Stark, I'm pleased to see you both. May I present my lovely wife, Lady Marjorie of House Tyrell, said Renly while presenting the woman who was indeed one of true beauty and honor. Lady Tyrell, I actually know of your grandmother. She was quite the beauty many years ago. I see much of her in you, replied Naruto with a bow. You knew my grandmother? She never mentioned it, replied Marjorie in surprise. That's because I asked her not to tell anyone she knew about me on such a level. It's not something I wished to be known at the time, and I didn't want her hassled over the fact she knew me all those years ago. Over time many people have been trying to find my home in order to learn of my secrets to using my magic. They have even gone so far as to harass others who could actually lay claim to having met or known me to find the actual location of my home," explained Naruto, with Marjorie nodding in understanding and saw why he wanted his privacy. "You are both welcome here, Lady Caitlyn. I am sorry for what has befallen your family with the 2 attempts of murder of one of your children and the attempted coup against your husband. Rest assured the Lannisters will pay for this when the time comes," said Renly, while trying to play to the crowd of knights around them to make himself be the kind and generous king the people would fight for when the time came. "It is enough to know justice is done, my lord," replied Caitlyn, while Brienne of Tarth seemed peeved by her way of addressing him. "It's your grace." When addressing Renly Baratheon, "You should both be kneeling when approaching the king," stated Brienne with a hint of anger. "There is no need for that. Caitlyn Stark is an honored guest representing House Stark and House Tully, and the great sage helped my late older brother Robert win the Iron Throne almost single-handedly. It's actually because of him that we learned of the plot by the Lannisters to take the Iron Throne from him using one of 3 incest bastard-born children. I even hear they had a hand in the death of the former hand of the king, Lord Jon Arryn of the Vale. Neither of them are required to kneel," replied Renly to calm his new Kingsguard. "Has your son marched on the Lannisters yet?" Lady Stark asked Ser Loras, with Naruto wondering if the man even understood. He said, "A very stupid question. I do not sit on my son's war council meetings, and even if I did I would not share his strategies," replied Caitlyn Stark with a hint of annoyance in his voice. "If Robb Stark wants a pact with us, then he should have come here himself, not hide behind his mother's skirt," said Loras with a hint of amusement, and got some chuckles from among the knights around him. "My son is fighting in a war, not playing at one," countered Caitlyn with more bite to her words and a glare to match that silenced the laughter around her. "It's true. So far Robb Stark's army has won every single battle against the Lannisters to date, and unlike you, Ser Loras, the man does not yield to others," added Naruto, since he knew such news would make many here think twice about doubting Robb's ability to lead the Northerners to victory. Plus, insulting Loras's pride was an added bonus. "Don't worry, Lady Stark, our war is just beginning. The Lannisters may have the most gold, but the casualties we will inflict on them will make the value of it while men fight for them decline greatly," replied Renly, while getting off his own throne and was walking down to the center of the little melee arena, where the 2 guests stood with Marjorie right beside him. "Actually, the war is why I am here. We should walk and talk," replied Naruto seriously to Renly, who nodded in agreement. "I already know about my brother and he doesn't concern me. I have 100,000 men under my command, all the might of the Stormlands and the Reach," said Renly proudly, while all the knights around him nodded and cheered as he walked by. "And all of them are young and bold like your Knight of Flowers. It's all a game to you, isn't it? I pity them." "And you," remarked Caitlyn sadly at the sight of these men acting so cheerful. "Why?" asked Renly in confusion. "Because it won't last. Because these are nights of summer and winter is coming," said Caitlyn, while seeing Naruto understood what she meant. These men were men living in warm weather and southern temperatures, allowing each man here to live a nice, almost cushy lifestyle. They enjoyed the pleasant feeling summer and the heat and warmth of the season. Since this was the end of the longest summer on record, the winter that was to come following a brief season of fall would be cruel to these men beyond measure. Not only that, but this war wasn't some mere tourney where one smashed into another man on a horse with a wooden lance and was granted victory with points. No, this was a serious war, one where swords, spears, arrows, and all forms of weaponry were used to end another man's life. Northern men understood this. Out of all the 7 kingdoms, out of all key 4 points of Westeros, the North had the most battle-hardened men living there, and rightfully so, since everything in the North must be earned, not given, something the West, East, and the South failed to remember when it came to the hardship of winter, when one has to live off the land to fight for every scrap of food and clothing one can get their hands on. Many thought the North was filled with fur-wearing barbarians, but it was those furs earned through hunting and living off the land that allowed Northerners to live through the most brutal of winters, in the most brutal of times. "Brienne, please escort Lady Caitlyn to her tent. She's clearly tired from her journey here after such a long ride. The sage and I will conduct business in my tent. Meet us there later," commanded Renly, with Brienne nodding at once. "Your Grace," said Brienne before she moved Caitlyn to the assigned tent meant for guests, while Renly to his own with Naruto beside him. "She's not wrong, Renly. These men have never been challenged in a fight beyond those of tourneys and the like, where they are from. Stannis himself as veterans under his own command who have seen plenty of warfare in the past. He's a man who surrounds himself with capable men and know how to fight when knee-deep in battle. While I know you do not believe that Stannis can win against you due to his lack of numbers, he makes up for it with having quality competence and military discipline on his side," remarked Naruto, with Renly sighing. "So you're saying my chances against my older brother are slim to none?" questioned Renly, with Naruto Shaking his head, it's not that, Renly, you have the numbers, no question you have the quantity in terms of the army needed to win, but Stannis has the quality. I always found that quality trumps quantity 9 times out of 10, said Naruto, with Renly sitting in his chair and drinking some wine. And the 1 out of 10 where quantity actually trumps quality, asked Renly with a hint of amusement in his voice. The victory is a hollow one. You will lose so many of your men that the victory doesn't even seem like one at all. Is that what you want, Renly, to be the 1 out of 10 and lose a large portion of your army in the process, to have all your men who survived come to the horribly reality that so many of their comrades died just so you could sit on the Iron Throne, that they fought, bled, and nearly died for one man to sit on the seat of power that made one king go mad and his successor into a drunkard, questioned Naruto, with Renly looking away with a sad expression on his face. I don't want my men to die, Naruto. Contrary to what you might believe about me, personally I deplore unnecessary violence, replied Renly, with Naruto nodding, which is why I came here, Renly, to get you and Stannis to stop this war that about to erupt between you two. If you don't, I foresee nothing but pain, hardship, and death, said Naruto, with Renly looking more amused than worried. I heard rumors of your having the ability to see the future. Is such a thing true? Did you see my future just now, asked Renly with a smile. Damn it, Renly, I'm being serious. You have spent your whole life living it easy because you are the youngest Baratheon among your brothers. Both men fought in war while you didn't. They knew how to fight while you know how to charm people. When it comes to war, who do you think has a better chance of winning, the man who knows about how to fight or the man who knows how to be charming, questioned Naruto, with his patience with the man getting thin. It was at that point Brienne entered the tent with watchful eyes. What would you have me do, Naruto? Talk to my brother, make peace with him, asked Renly, with Naruto nodding yes, for starters. Anyway, second, you need to get this strange idea of being king out of your head, unless your older brother Stannis suddenly drops dead without you being in any shape or form involved in the slightest. The laws about the succession to the throne are very specific, Renly replied Naruto, with Renly scowling at him now for bringing that particular piece of information up. Stannis will not make peace with me, great sage. He wants the Iron Throne as much as I do, but we both know he's not king material. I am. My only misfortune here was being the youngest of my brothers, replied Renly, with Naruto nodding in somewhat agreement to his words. You're right about Stannis not being king material. A good commander, yes, a king, no, especially now with the Red Woman influencing him from her position as his new advisor, replied Naruto, with Renly looking amused. Yes, I've heard about her burning statues of the Seven, seeing visions in fire, and calling on her Lord of Light for guidance. You think this Red Woman is a threat to me with her so-called magic, questioned Renly, with Naruto scowling at him. Renly, I'm more of a threat to you than she could ever hope to be in life. The only reason I don't slay your ignorant ass right now is because I don't believe it is necessary, and you are the most reasonable of your brothers. However, the Red Woman is indeed a threat to you because unlike me you don't have any defense against her power. She can use magic and will use it on you if Stannis wants your army to fight for him, replied Naruto, with his tone showing how serious he was about this. And be marked as a kinslayer. Surely Stannis wouldn't go that far, questioned Brienne, while Naruto nodded. My Kingsguard is right. My brother is many things, but killing his own brother, no, he wouldn't do that, replied Renly, with Naruto sighing. You think so, huh? Let me tell you story. It's about a man who killed his entire family, a man who was given this sinful task by the leader he was sworn to serve, to go home and kill his own family for the sake of the village he lived in and loved as a whole, replied Naruto, before telling Renly the story of Uchiha Itachi and how the man killed his kin in the name of duty to the village. In the end, it seemed to make the two people standing in the tent with him understand the seriousness of the situation regarding Stannis. I see that is quite a story, replied Renly, with his face looking very pale. Indeed is quite a story, said Naruto, and sighed. Is it true this man killed his entire family, became a kinslayer multiple times over, asked Brienne, with Naruto nodding. Yes, it is true. If a man like Itachi can do that for such a reason, what makes you think Stannis won't do it for one of his own? You are an obstacle to him, Renly the practical man, and Stannis tells him that you are his brother, and as such you should be shown mercy. The military man and Stannis, however, tells him obstacles who get in his way are to be killed, so you won't be a threat to him anymore. Stannis will listen to the practical side of himself first, but should you refuse his offer, the military side will use whatever available resource is at his disposal to remove your life from play, even going so far as to using one with the ability to use magic to do it, replied Naruto, with Renly sighing. You're right, I don't want to bend the knee to my brother since we both know the man is not worthy of being king, but at the same time I don't want to fight Stannis. He is my brother after all, replied Renly, with Naruto nodding, knowing the man was stuck in a very difficult situation. I know you don't, Renly, and I think Stannis doesn't want to either, at least not without a proper excuse or reason. Just be cautious from here on out, Renly. Better to be cautious and have nothing happen than be ignorant and Someone putting a blade in your back, said Naruto with Renly sighing. And what about the red woman? If she is whispering into my brother's ear and he's listening to her, I fear for his mind, said Renly with Naruto nodding. Leave her to me when the time comes, replied Naruto before he left. In a ripple, I heard stories of his magic, but never until now did I believe it even existed, remarked Brienne at the sight of seeing Naruto vanish. I agree, the things I could do with that power to vanish alone is worth more to me than all the gold in the world, said Renly before letting out a sigh, and had some more wine while thinking about his conversation with Naruto. He had much to think about. Iron Island's Pike Theon was in his room, a room he had not been in since his time as a boy. As the son of Balon Greyjoy, it was dark with only a single lit candle at his desk. Theon was currently sitting in it reading his warning letter to Robb, about how things didn't go as planned, how the young Greyjoy's bitter father was now planning to attack the North in typical Ironborn fashion. After finding out it was vulnerable now that its men were now fighting against the Lannisters, all he had to do was tie this to a raven and let it fly straight to Robb Stark. He should do it, he could do it, and yet Theon didn't do it. On one hand, he owed the Starks for many things in life. They treated him well, better than most would in their place. In fact, they made sure he was educated, trained to fight, and the brothels with women in them weren't half bad either. Theon learned a lot from his time in the North and from the Starks. His father thought the North was weak, but they weren't weak. Every day in the North was one where the strong lived and survived the harsh temperatures surrounding it, bitter colds, wind, snow, and the animals around the North that would go so far as to kill or eat humans to survive. Theon had hoped his father would be pleased to see his son become so strong in such a harsh environment. To see his son was indeed every bit the man the boy's brothers had been in life. Sadly, his own father never did care about him very much. His two dead brothers were considered more like son to Balon Greyjoy than Theon ever could have been. In his eyes, it didn't matter to old bitter man sitting on the salt throne that Theon was strong, could fight, and did fight in many battles. Had they been navy battles with ships under his command, had Theon raped, pillaged, and did everything worthy of being called his son and an Ironborn, maybe Balon would actually see his son as his son and not as some dog he threw away to the wolves in the hopes they would eat him alive so the stain on the Kraken's blood would die. Theon desired for his father to acknowledge him as his son, to see Theon as his heir and welcome him back with open arms. He wanted the old bitter man to look at him and say, I'm sorry for throwing you away, you have become strong and I wasn't there to see it happen. But that wasn't Balon Greyjoy. No, Balon Greyjoy was a mean, bitter old man who was so bitter with his past losses at the hands of Westeros that he would rather continue where he left off years ago and burn everything to the ground, to take everything around him and leave everyone else with nothing, to rape, pillage, plunder, and destroy whatever his eyes could see or not see, while taking everything of value for himself in order to gain my father's approval. I need to betray Robb. But what if father's plans for the North fail? What will Robb do to me if I'm captured? I swore an oath to follow him when proclaimed king of the North, yet I am Ironborn. We do not sow oaths, and words mean nothing to us, only actions. All that truly matters is the Ironborn way, and appeasing the drowning god, thought Theon while holding the rolled up letter with his house seal on it, and frowned deep down. Theon knew he should side with Robb Stark. He knew his father was in over his head, trying to go back to the ways of old. Those days were archaic, and the beliefs of an old bitter man who was a sore loser, and letting his equally bitter hatred from losing all those years ago fester like a disease you got from an unclean whore at a dirty brothel. And yet Robb Stark wasn't his father. Robb Stark was his brother by oath, but sadly not his blood. If only things had been different. I'm sorry, Robb, but I can't betray my family, whispered Theon before putting the rolled up parchment on the lit candle and watched it slowly burn away. You already did, Theon whispered Naruto coldly while he stabbed Theon in the back with a tanto, with the end of the blade coming out the front of his chest. Gee, great sage, exclaimed Theon in surprise. I had hoped you would not go down this path, Theon. I watched you talk to your father, how he insulted you shortly after seeing him, pleading with him to see the bigger picture in the war with the Lannisters. I'm not all that surprised he said no to the offer Robb gave you to give to him. Bitterness is a poison, and your father has been drinking it for over a decade. But what disappoints me the most in your actions is the fact you would betray your sworn brother Robb Stark, and House Stark for that matter, all for the mean, bitter piece of shit you would call a father. Ned Stark was more of a father to you than your own father by blood. And how do you repay him? How do you repay House Stark? By siding with the bitter old man named Balon Greyjoy, the man who threw you away to save his own life and didn't show an ounce of regret doing it after bending the knee. You sided with that idiot for a sire over the house that actually treated you with something akin to an actual family. Such a betrayal will not go unpunished in my eyes. Theon, you owed your happy life in the North to the Starks and betrayed them for this fucking shithole your father calls the Iron Islands, whispered Naruto while Theon was choking on the blood slowly spewing out of his mouth. Please don't kill me, pleaded Theon while Naruto pressed the blade in deeper. Too little, too late. Theon, you are already dead. Once I pull out this weapon it's over, whispered Naruto while Theon still struggled to live. Or Rob needs my help. My father is planning to invade the north, said Theon while Naruto nodded. I know, I already warned him and Ned Stark about this. Your father's plans will fail and the Ironborn sent to attack the north will die. I wish you hadn't chosen this path, Theon. Alas, you made your decision and now must live with the consequences, replied Naruto before pulling the Tanto out and left the Greyjoy there to bleed over the desk. Without even looking back, Naruto was gone into the shadows of the room and was gone long before Theon's sister found him. Like that, the next morning Yara accused her father of having Theon killed despite the man denying it and calling his only remaining child a fool for thinking as such. Yara countered saying Balan didn't love Theon and saw him as a threat to their plans to invade the north. How he didn't trust his own son because Theon had been with the Starks for so long. Again Balan denied it, calling his daughter a fool, and would not resort to such a manner of killing his only remaining son even if said son was nothing more than a naive servant of the wolf pup in the north. Thus began the gradual rift between Yara Greyjoy and her father, just as Naruto planned when he killed Theon Lannisport. Tyrion Lannister's quarters. Tyrion sighed while looking over his work for the day, and wondered if this appointed position by his father was another way to kill him off death through sheer boredom and paperwork, not to mention keeping Joffrey and Cersei in line. Word reached everyone in Lannisport of Tywin giving temporary lordship of the city over to Tyrion, and it was met with mixed reactions. Shock for the most part, some anger by others, but surprisingly the majority of the people did support the decision. It seemed anyone was better than Cersei or Joffrey in their eyes. Oh, Cersei had tried to usurp him, saying with Joffrey they had tried to use their positions, claimed positions, threats, bribery, and everything else one could use to turn the soldiers against Tyrion. It all failed. Of course, Tyrion knew so long as Tywin was alive to have the final say over the West, Cersei could not get the soldiers in the city around her to move against Tyrion, and that was just fine with the imp of House Lannister. Besides, it seemed this work in running the city was going to do it for her anyway. In the short time Cersei had ruled here under Joffrey's name, the woman had spent a lot more gold than one should. She either spend it on herself, Joffrey something, Joffrey wanted something she wanted, and ultimately compensated the family treasury by taking more money from the people. I swear the woman expects too much from the people she relies on. This imaginary fact, her house name is Lannister and everyone should bleed in some manner for it, and for her personally, thought Tyrion while working on the letter he was writing to Naruto in the hopes he or maybe even Ned Stark would read it. In truth, the letter was written to somehow make peace with the North, the Lord Regent, and get this war to end without further loss of life. The North had been dominating one battle after the next without stopping. From what news reached Lannisport about the war, the only good news right now was a significant portion of the Northern Army was sent back to defend against the impending invasion by the Iron Islands. Not only that, but the health of one Holster Tully was getting weaker by the day, and it wouldn't be long before the liege lord of the Riverruns would die of old age. Hence further delays for the North to advance further south to the west and ultimately claim victory over House Lannister. Still, such delays were only temporary, and Tyrion knew he had to milk such moments for all they were worth. You won't let me leave this room, you won't let me, said Shae, the current woman in Tyrion's life, whom he met back just days before fighting beside the hill. Tribesmen of the Vale. Shush, keep your voice down, exclaimed Tyrion worriedly, since he knew his sister still had spies working for her to find evidence needed to get their father to remove him as the Lord of Lannisport. Why, you think your father can hear me in another city on some distant battlefield while surrounded by his army? Shae countered while raising her voice and made Tyrion grimace. By the gods, why did the most stubborn women intrigue him so damn much? I don't intend for you to stay here. I honestly didn't expect to become Lord of Lannisport either, or have you by my side yet. Here we are in this room, but I need to have you here under legitimate reasons that won't raise any suspicion by my sister. Even now she is seeking to conspire against me to find a way to remove me from my current position. If she does succeed, I will be locked away and you will be suffering horribly under her thumb, if not under the cruel hands of my nephew Joffrey. I don't have to tell you that neither he or his mother are the nicest people to be around, warned Tyrion with Shae sighing. I take it you have an idea on how to keep me around, asked Shae with Tyrion nodding, since it was the only way he could think up at the moment. As I stated earlier, I don't intend for you to stay here. I might be able to bring you into the kitchens again. It's only temporary, stated Tyrion with Shaw frowning. Every man who has tasted my cooking has told me what a good whore I am, said Shae as she saw Tyrion grimace and had a feeling his next few choice words wouldn't be well liked by her. Well, you wouldn't be a cook, you would be posing as a scullion, replied Tyrion with Shae looking at him cautiously. Scullion? What's a scullion? asked Shae, since she was from another land and culture, so her understanding of a few choice words defining someone's profession was slightly off. A kitchen wench, answered Tyrion, and winced, since it was basically her being in the kitchen, working in the kitchen, and yet not being an actual cook. A kitchen wench, so I am to provide food to everyone around me when called. Perhaps I should give some of the men a special dessert while I am at it, asked Shay angrily, with Tyrion sighing again. Yes, and no, this is only a precaution to keep you alive. We have both come to a very dangerous place. My position here is stable but barely given. My sister hating me with every fiber of her being. My nephew is no better. They will both do everything in their power to gain control of Lannisport before moving to take the Iron Throne back from Ned Stark. I have to keep my family at bay while at the same time try to bring peace between House Lannister and House Stark. There's also the issue with House Baratheon, who my sister has had the distinguished pleasure of fucking over horribly in terms of her being unfaithful to her late husband and the late king of the Seven Kingdoms, no less, explained Tyrion, with Shay raising an eyebrow at him. I heard the late king was unfaithful as well, remarked Shay with her arms crossed. True, but my sister also conspired to have said king and the hand of the king killed, so her morals are not what you call existent. She also wants to hurt me, and she will look for any weakness she can find, said Tyrion, with Shay looking insulted. So I am a weakness, questioned Shay, with Tyrion sighing. It's a compliment, my lady. I assure you it was not an insult in the slightest. When I mean you are a weakness, I mean anything, everything, and everyone who gives me joy is a target. You give me happiness. My sister cannot stand to see me happy in any shape or form, and I know whatever or whoever brings me joy is a target for her machination to bring about my downfall, explained Tyrion, and was silently thankful to Naruto during their walk to the Vale in regards to their talk about how to diffuse a conflict with women when they assume the wrong things. When in a heated conversation, just be truthful and honest with the woman you are in a relationship with. Tyrion explained to her in very precise detail what you are trying to say so she can't misunderstand you. Tyrion had to admit it had worked so far, since it made Shay's scowl on her face become a small smile instead. How long must I stay hidden, asked Shay, with Tyrion sighing. Only temporary, at least until I can place myself in a secure position where you being out in the open near me doesn't make either of us the target. I need to get in contact with the great sage and convince him to get Ned Stark and Robb Stark to make peace with House Lannister, to reach terms in which all parties are satisfied, and hopefully one where I can still keep my head in the end. When it's all over, when all that happens, I will have one less thing to worry about, and you will become my main priority, said Tyrion, with Shay smiling further at him. North, beyond the wall, Naruto walked toward his destination with a seriousness he had not felt in a long time. To think he would come back here after all this time. How long has it been since he last saw him? A century, 5, maybe more. Perhaps it didn't matter. Time had come and gone now. There was only the present. You shouldn't have come back here, said one of several girls who looked like she was born from some form of tree or plant. And you shouldn't be standing in my way, countered Naruto coldly at the sight of these children of the forest, his creation from years past, who were meant to help him bring nature to a new height of greatness. Considering what you did in the past, you will understand. I don't believe you, replied one of the girls, glaring at him. I'm not here to debate this with you. I'm here to talk to the three-eyed raven, said Naruto before walking around one of the forest girls and entered the cave, and soon found himself standing in front of an old man surrounded by roots of a heart tree above them. So you've finally come after all these years, commented the old man, pinned by the roots of the very heart tree on the hill above them. You didn't think I would? I suppose I should be surprised given your power to see the future. Then again, you never could see the future when it pertains to me, said Naruto, with the three-eyed raven grimacing. Even now you hold nothing but contempt for me for what I did, replied the three-eyed raven, while Naruto scowled and removed his mask so the old man could see it. Why so surprised? You betrayed me. We had an actual chance for a lasting peace with all mankind. No more wars, no more mindless skirmishes, and what do? You fuck it all up in a grab for power, which would have been short-lived and would not last. You saw it, all of it. I know you did, or you wouldn't have made the grab. You threw away countless years of hard work and planning for everlasting peace, and for what, a few measly decades of you sitting on a throne ruling with the world soon plunging into chaos and war within days upon your death. Hardly a proper trade-off, replied Naruto, with the old man wincing in pain from the memory of his betrayal. I made a mistake. I was young. I was filled with power. I do not understand how you could not understand what it means to be so powerful yet not use it to take direct control and rule over others. Even now I still do not understand you, said the three-eyed raven, with Naruto sighing. And I don't expect you to understand me. You dishonored me with your actions. You dishonored my teachings, my beliefs. Even now you seek to escape your punishment and being here by finding your replacement in the form of Bran Stark. He has the gift, and you seek to teach him everything I taught you about your powers, replied Naruto, with the old man sweating a bit under his gaze. He needs a teacher. I can guide him, said the old three-eyed raven. Tell me, do you really think Bran would accept such teachings if the boy knew of your plan to have him be imprisoned here in your place? Or perhaps you wish to prepare him to the point where you could ward with his body, using one of your trips through the past to see previous events seeing a past event with you and then at the last moment possess his body and stay in it with your years of experience in a much younger body like you tried to do to me when attempting your act of betrayal, asked Naruto, seeing the old man continue to sweat under his gaze. I do what I must to live and survive beyond this hell you put me through. I do what I must to live a life away from this prison. I have served my time. I deserve to be free, exclaimed the old man. You deserve to be punished. You betrayed everything I worked so hard for, what others had worked so hard for. When beside me you betrayed your family. A man who betrays his family for power forfeits his right to be a member of that family. You forfeited your right long ago. Stay away from Ned Stark and don't send anyone to bring him to you. I will kill any who try, replied Naruto, before turning around to leave. Even now you still judge me with such disdain, you who even now won't punish these children of the forest, your own creations, no less in helping make nature thrive again. It was them, in their own desperate act to protect nature, that they ended up creating the White Walkers. You entrusted them with the mutated pieces of the White Zetsu army you fought long ago, and they brought about monsters made of ice and death, yet you do not punish them with imprisonment like you did me, exclaimed the old three-eyed raven. You think they aren't suffering? They are stuck here in this little barrier, surrounded by just each other, and you sooner or later they will break through. Maybe I will even help the White Walkers by removing the barrier for them when I have had enough of your own backstabbing existence. Who knows for certain? What I do know is that when they do come, you along with all of them will perish for your past crimes, and I won't shed tear over it, replied Naruto before walking away from the old man. You speak to me of dishonor. How do you think the world would judge you if they all knew you imprisoned your last remaining son to this tree, or that it was through your own creations that the White Walkers lived through them, questioned the three-eyed raven angrily, and Naruto stopped to look at him. I don't care if they judge me, my son. Believe me when I say I have a lot to answer for when the time comes to be judged, if I ever am judged at all. What I do know is that the source behind my actions you mentioned is imprisoned here where you and the children of the forest belong. In my three eyes you are no son of mine, and I have no pity when it comes to your remaining life being spent here, replied Naruto with the three-eyed raven scowling at him while leaving the cave. You want to know why I did what I did? I chose to betray your vision and dream for peace because you were a poor father to me. When growing up you were always caring more about others than your own family. Raising me was more of a chore than joy for you. In my heart my greatest desire was to see you fail and be humbled in the fact one Uzumaki Naruto was not perfect. You are not some wise old sage with years of ancient knowledge at your command. You are just a three-eyed bastard who does not know what it is to be a good father or person, exclaimed the three-eyed raven angrily while Naruto turned to glance at him. You think I don't know your reason? My failure for a son. I knew the reason the moment you executed your plan to betray me all those years ago. I know I wasn't a good father to you at times. Perhaps I should have been a much better father, but something tells me that even if I did act like one, you would have still betrayed me in your grab for power. You would have used my own love for you as a weapon by blinding me with it. I think I would have been unable to stop you, so do not get all righteous with me. The excuse for your actions is fake and a lie, replied Naruto before walking out on the man who at one point would have been called his son. You can't save the world this time, father. Not even you can stop the White Walkers and the entire undead army from marching. I have foreseen it. They cannot be destroyed by the likes of you, called out the old man in an attempt to rattle the sage further. Even after all these long years in his prison, my idiot for a son still hasn't even learned anything regarding his actions. I'm starting to think he won't learn anything, whispered Naruto to himself before he left the cold bitterness of the north beyond the wall. Naruto had more important things to do than show pity for someone like his failure and betrayer for a son.